Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Tom Nelson and I'd like to welcome you to the Diabetes Control video lesson series. This video lesson is going to outline one by one, along with a very large number of support videos, 6 steps that you could take that will allow you to gain complete control over your diabetes. This is video lesson number 1, part 1. It's about inflammation, which is one of the causes of diabetes manifestation. So diabetes is a genetically based inflammatory disease, and it manifests when the conditions are ripe. That means that your diet and your lifestyle over the years prior caused massive amounts of ongoing inflammation throughout your body, and it was chronic inflammation that didn't stop, and it set up those specific conditions that made the manifestation of your diabetes possible. Experts now claim that there's 200 different inflammatory diseases, and they each will manifest based on a specific genetic propensity. That means each individual has a genetic makeup that's going to cause one of those 200 different diseases or disorders that are inflammatory based to manifest as a result of the damage that's been set up over these years past. It just so happened that you are genetically predisposed to become diabetic. Inflammation sets up so many severe conditions that the body can no longer control important functions. Your immune system becomes exhausted and it loses effectiveness over very important issues. Enteric viruses can cause your diabetes to manifest. Things like the Coxsackie virus is quite common. But usually it's because there's so much inflammation going on already and so much damage that it really makes it quite easy for the virus to cause it to manifest. Certain foods like wheat, soy, corn, and dairy can cause diabetes to manifest. In fact, there's numerous studies now that have proven that dairy can cause type 1 juvenile diabetes to manifest, even in very young children. But for most, it will manifest after a long-term accumulation, an accumulation of damage that was caused by the inflammation, high blood sugars, low blood sugars, or usually including erratic blood sugars. So that is going to suggest that you should know more and all you can learn about inflammation, because you can't beat it unless you understand it. So this is a human cell. In the upper right-hand corner of that cell, in this illustration, you'll note that there are there's 4 of them shown there, and they have antennas that reach out into the bloodstream. Those are called antigens. Every cell in your body has them. Every living thing in the world has them, and they can be compatible, they may not be compatible, but they reach out into the bloodstream and they sample everything that flows by. And if it is not compatible to the antigens of your body, then they will alert your immune system, which will come in, produce an antibody for it, and then destroy it. This is an artist's rendition of what a cell might look like with the antigens all the way around. Those red things are like blood cells and such that are flowing by, and they're being sampled. This is an atom. So the way your immune system works is when an antibody is produced for a substance, then one of your immune cells, it's called a natural killer cell, or a T cell, is going to come in and it's going to rob that atom, which typically has a neutron, a proton, but primarily the nucleus in the center, and those electrons that orbit around it. Normally, if those electrons are all there and they're orbiting normally, it's a very stable and it's a very mild-mannered substance. But if you take some of those electrons off of that orbit, then that atom can become extremely violent. It becomes very atomic and very hot, and it's going to do whatever it can to restore its normal balance, and it will become violent. And eventually what will happen is that atomic reaction is going to destroy whatever it was that was an intruder in your bloodstream. And then your body, your immune system, is going to bring in antioxidants. Antioxidants you've heard of. Now you're going to know what they do. Antioxidants are just substances like vitamins, vitamin C, E, beta-carotene. There's a lot of different ones. They're capable of coming in and removing their own electrons and throwing them into this fury of activity And the atoms then will very quickly grab up those electrons and restore their balance, and the whole process will stop. And that is inflammation. Inflammation is how your body gets rid of invaders. But the problem is when you've been eating years of pro-oxidants, which are foods that are loaded with chemicals and additives and all the things that cause inflammation, because those antigens don't recognize those chemicals and additives as something that should be in the bloodstream. And even if you cook your food too much, too high of temperatures for too long, it'll alter the chemistry of even broccoli to the point where those antigens won't recognize it, and this process will be called in and try to deal with it. So this is inflammation. So your immune system, if it can't destroy it, if this process that I just described doesn't work, and if it keeps coming back, for example, if you just keep eating processed foods or fast foods or junk food day after day after day, that inflammation can rage on nonstop. And because there's no antioxidants in those kind of foods, it can't be stopped. It's going to keep on going. And those processed foods that contain those chemical additives are a major cause. Years of eating things out of a can, box, bottle, or a bag that had all of those chemical additives are going to be your nemesis. So inflammation sets up so many severe conditions that your body can no longer control very important functions. For example, your blood sugar. And there's many others. You'll look for videos on homeostasis, which will describe much of that. So the immune system is going to become exhausted, and it's going to lose effectiveness over important issues in your body. So inflammation is the key. So there are good inflammation types, and there are bad inflammation types. Your body uses the good forms every day. It goes on 24 hours a day. You don't even realize it's going on. There's no symptoms. It's just quietly doing its job, and it usually resolves things pretty quickly. But the bad inflammation is what causes all the damage. That's the chronic inflammation. And its causes of it are all around you. Sugar in high doses, vegetable oil, saturated animal fats, hidden food allergens, especially the additives that are in your food, are major contributors. Lack of exercise, chronic stress, and hidden infections all trigger that raging, unseen inflammation that's going on deeply in your tissues and your cells throughout your body. So they'll all set up chronic diseases eventually, which will include diabetes. It contributes to aging, heart disease, cancer, dementia, lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, and 200 others. It's a major contributor to obesity. Being fat is basically being inflamed. It's a sure sign that there's massive amounts of inflammation going on inside your body. It's that simple. So inflammation is a complex response that your body's tissues will put on in response to a harmful stimuli. Those antigens discovering something in your bloodstream that shouldn't be there. It can be a lot of things like the processed foods I mentioned, but it can also be bacteria, pathogens, other damaged cells, chemicals, or other irritants. Anything that is not recognized as beneficial to your body or natural is going to be flagged. So it's a protective response. It's presented by your immune system along with your blood vessels and other mediators in response to those stimulants. Inflammation will cause heat, it'll cause pain, redness, swelling, and it can cause a loss of function. Inflammation can be either acute then or chronic, as I mentioned. Acute inflammation is that initial response to an irritant or a harmful stimuli, and it's always short term. But you have acute inflammation going on all the time where your body's just getting rid of invaders without any real fuss. It usually happens fairly quickly. But the acute inflammation is usually activated by an increased flow of immune cell-rich plasma to the place where that irritant or the injury has occurred. And that's what causes the swelling. And the heat is going to be caused by the excess amount of blood that is there. The immune cells, like leukocytes, there's 5 different types of leukocytes, or those white blood cells. They're going to go to work. And one of those leukocytes is called granulocytes, and they are amazing. They're little traveling chemistry labs. They're going to travel to the place where this irritant or the injury has occurred, and they're going to evaluate it, and they're going to go into their little chemistry lab, and they're going to produce something, a concoction of sorts, to destroy it, to get rid of it. and so that's how it's done. The immune system very quickly resolves the issue, and it's done and gone and forgotten. Chronic inflammation, on the other hand, is a bad form of inflammation. It's more complex, and it's always long-term. It can range from months to even years. It can just continue to rage on and to fight the battle non-stop for very long periods of time. Your body cannot get rid of whatever it is that's causing it, and so it just keeps fighting it, and it's not winning. So an autoimmune disorder, like diabetes, is going to form, and it's going to be specific to the type of injuries or issues and inflammation that has occurred. And those autoimmune disorder diseases then are going to constantly begin to attack healthy cells and tissues and organs. So it's going to require a progressive shift in the different type of responses to each threat. Repeated exposure to an irritant can cause that inflammation to rage on long term, again, like eating processed foods, junk food, or even fast food every single day or meal after meal is going to really, really push this forward and to the forefront. So the symptoms of this chronic inflammation, if you have them, if you have a spare tire or a pot belly, you have inflammation going on. If your waist is larger than your hips, you've got inflammation. Elevated blood sugars are your typical. Digestive issues, diarrhea, constipation, some people get both, bloating, gas, and others. Low energy levels, chronic fatigue, skin issues, eczema, psoriasis, red blotchy skin are symptoms. So if the inflammation is not stopped, it can continue just to go on, destroying things and causing damage. So how do you incorporate all of this to make it work for you? You need first to do everything possible to prevent and stop inflammation. Read the labels on everything you buy. Empty your pantry of all the processed foods. Stop eating all wheat and wheat products. Stop eating GMOs, so genetically modified foods. They may even have pesticides, or some of them are pesticides. Stop eating corn, soy, dairy, sodas, pork, artificial sweeteners, especially aspartame and Splenda. Limit your caffeine and alcohol. Eliminate as many chemicals in your life as you possibly can. Buy natural green earth benefiting types of cleaning products, and there are all kinds of products on the market that do not contain all of these dangerous chemicals. So now proceed to lesson number 1, part 2. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. You're more than welcome to watch it as often as you like, and please pay it forward. Share what you learned with other diabetics. Thank you.